All right. There goes our time. Okay, good to go. So how's everybody's break? Good. Excellent. So let's get this party started. I know everybody's excited. Let's see. Let's jump in here and see a few things here. So a few things we have to cover for day 6. We're going to try creating a list. Okay, we're gonna create a list with the same data types or different data types. I don't know how important that is, but let's go ahead and try those out. So as you can see, I switched back to Jupyter Notebooks because in here, I think it's easier for us to run and execute it rather than using Visual Studio Code. So it's easier for us to go through the list of these actions that we need to take. But before I jump in, do we have any questions? Looking at what we need to do, creating a list, accessing the list, using negative indices, which we talked about, adding values to list, removing values from a list, finding value in a list, determining the length of the list. That probably could have been all the way up there. Minimum and maximum values, again, that's easy for us to do, right? Are there any of those 8 things that stand out to anyone? Looks like everybody should be comfortable with those, right? All right, so let's jump in. Let's start with my list. Or let's just say students. That's the name of the list. And how do we create that? What do we use? Do we use curly braces or square brackets? Any ideas? Everybody's on mute.
If it is a list, we can use a square bracket.
Exactly, square brackets for list. So let's start with Mr. Fabulous. And then we'll carry on with Nigel. And then we can have Anne in there. As well as, oh, there's a problem. I forgot to put quotes around Nigel's name. See, that's what happens now that we're using Visual Studio Code. I'm imagining that it's closing the quotes for me. Right. So we've gotten our students. And maybe we want to put favorite colors in there as well. Favorite colors would be, start with Fabian. This guy definitely likes black. Nigel, I'll go with white for. And let's try blue. Oh my goodness, I don't know. What would Aaron like?
Not a tough one.
Let's give him purple. All right. So we've gotten this with same data types, right?
I would have preferred white today.
Oh, white today. Okay,
That's
we're
just
gonna
for
change
today.
that. Eventually, we'll change that. So
It's
let's
Divine
see.
Mercy Sunday, so
That's right. Divine Mercy Sunday. Purple is a royal color, so it's divine too, right? So let's see, favorite number. So let's try to create a list now with different data types. So I'm going to mix up those numbers. Everybody is going to have the same number though. So let's have 7. Oops. And then next one, let's have 7 again. And the next one, let's have 7.0. And another, this guy probably speaks French. Let's give him French word for 7. Right? How it's spelled, I think that's how you spell set in 7, right? In French. Yeah, those are all good. If I execute those, nothing happens. So I just created them, but I might want to find out what type they are. So what's the type for students? And it tells me it's a list. The same for favorite colors. it's also a list. And the same for February number, it's also a list. So we've been able to create a list with same data types, different, and so on and so forth. We could also create an empty list. To create an empty list, all we have to do is that we execute that. It's totally fine. Now we can also,
Prof,
yes,
I'm sorry. When we are using the type function to check the whatever, for example, we are using for students here,
yes.
can we not do like comma separated value or use a type as a list and just add like for it to show instead of doing it on a line at a time? Like if I wanted to see the type student, pop colors, pop numbers, and all of that, do
Yeah.
you have to copy like that type and paste it multiple times, or you can just do comma separated?
So your question is if I want to find out the type of this and that.
No, the on yeah, the type students, what
Yeah.
which is definitely a list.
Yeah.
But if you want to see that for the other ones as well, yes, instead of keep
Changing it.
typing type, yes, something like that. Can we do that?
Very good question. Since we are here, I cannot really show you that, but we cannot do this because remember what we did in our last class when we created a function?
Mhm.
When we created a function, the function either takes zero or zero, one or more attributes or arguments rather. This particular function has its own definition. The definition of this function was that it takes only one argument. Does that
Oh,
make
okay.
sense?
Yeah. So are there other what now? Maybe other arguments in there that we can say type import type as something to use?
In this case, again, this particular program, let me run it so that we can get the error message and you'll probably explain. If I execute that, it says type takes one or three arguments. So if we want to see the arguments that it takes, let's go ahead and do Python type. Obviously, it would have been better if let's just switch to that and then I can go ahead and try that out. So let's say type. In here, it shows you the arguments, okay? So the first type is an object name and then the base and a dictionary. So the type object is the object's type. The type name base and is a new type. So in this case, it's probably trying to change it from one type to another. Okay, if you're going to put in three different, what should I say, three different arguments. So for every function, you want to make sure you follow its definition. If the function says enter one argument, you should enter one. If you enter more than one, it's going to give you an error message. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, that's what we'll get in that case. Otherwise, I'll have to go in and search for the type. Oops, that's the wrong one. I want to go to the actual Python documentation. Yep, so the Python documentation should give you type aliases and so on. But yeah, it's easier for us to use in this case, to use Visual Studio Code because those hints are very useful. All right, excellent question. Now, there are other ways that you can also create a list. One of my favorite ways is using the range function. Let me go ahead and add that in there. It's using the range function. So with the range function, what you can do is say list range. So what I'm going to call that. I'm going to create a list with, let's say, 10 values. Okay. Then maybe I should print that list. Let's first of all print the type and then print the list. Come on. So if we do that, No way. What am I missing now? I always do that. So to get a list range, let's go ahead and, sorry, we need to go list and get the range in there. Yeah. Okay. So the range again is just a function that's going to give you values from 1 to 10. But when you do list range, it's going to, sorry, from 1 to 9. Then when you do list range, it actually takes that and forms a list out of it. And this should have given me, let me print that. This should have given me the data type of list range. Not, so let's print it. So it printed that. It's always going to print just the last statement or the last function, or should I say the last variable. So list range is of type list, and that's what it has in there. If I want to include 10, all I have to do is change that to 11, and I should have all of those. So that's how you can use the range to create values on the fly. Does that sound good to everyone? Questions, comments, concerns?
If you were to print the range for the months, would you just say January to December in place of 1 and 11?
Oh, very good. So now it would depend on that range function. That range function only takes in integers. So let's
Integer.
switch back
Oh,
again.
okay.
Yeah, because of that, that might be the challenge. But also, there are many ways that you can come up with those to automate that. And yeah, very good question. Yeah. Another thing that you might want to do again, which I don't think I have it on this list. Let's say we want to make changes to, yeah, I don't have that in there. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and check. I'll do that at the bottom here. But yeah, that's how you use the list range. Now to access items in the list, as you have seen, I've been able to just output the items. You can also use print to print the list. It's still going to give you the same thing. So let me comment this out. That's probably not the best way to display your list. The best way would be for us to use our something that we used earlier, right? The loops, to be able to iterate through. So if we have to use a loop, what we need to do is just use a quick way would be for item in list range, right? So for each item within that list range, it's going to go through each one of the items. We can go ahead and just print the item. That's it. So that's going to go through, execute, and print each one, just like that. Sounds good? Question? No questions? Yes, Aaron, go for it.
So in the real world out there, I'm guessing that there might be limited reasons why we should be creating lists, but we'll probably want to pull that from somewhere and then use the various functions that we are learning here to manipulate. Is that correct?
Yes, you'll probably not be creating lists, but something you might want to do is maybe if you have some automation to do, maybe you want to keep track of some things, you might just want, hey, I just need a list of 10 things and then assign it. And then maybe take that list, turn it into a tuple, or use that list in what do you call it? In a dictionary and so on to be able to have those values. And yeah, but again, having all this understanding is going to help you one way or another if you have to use some kind of automation. Sounds good?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So let's just go ahead.
If we wanted to print item 8.
Oh, very good. If we wanted to print item 8, so all we have to do is item 8 is currently at position number 9. So to print item 8, I'll have to do what's the name? List range. Oopsie. 9.
9. Okay.
Let's go ahead and just make it look nice and say print item at position. Oops, let me not say position. Let's say index. Index. I think, yeah, I want to give it a variable. Let's say my index. Call that 9. So item at index, my index. Is, I'm gonna put a comma. That makes sense?
Yes, it does.
And then I go ahead and close my print statement. So if I print that, if I execute that, item at index 9 is 10. Oops, that's because it's 0 base. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I should change that to 7. Execute it, you should have 8. Or you can ask the user to enter a value. Oh, cannot spell. Position, again, everybody's familiar with this so far. And go ahead and say my index should now be integer of that plus 1. If you say enter position 1, it should give you position 0, so minus 1. Execute that. Enter position 1. That wrong place to type. Position 11. That's wrong. So position 11, it counts all the way and starts again. So enter position 2. Oopsie. I think that twice. Position 2 is 4. Why is it giving me that error? And I have it inside a loop, so it's going to keep running until I stop it. It should not have been in the loop. So my index is blah, 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 blah. Let's execute that. Enter position 3. The index at 3 is 3. Yeah. Or the item at index 2 is 3. So that's just how you go about, printing out that particular index. But let's go ahead and try something else here. I need to comment all of these out or just delete those. Put it in another cell, which I'm not going to use for now. So next thing we wanted to talk about was maybe looking at this list range. I want to make it bigger, right? So instead of having how many records, I need to find out what's the length or what's the size of that list. To get the size of the list, we use the length function. Okay. So print again. I should probably go ahead and make this somewhere. Size of the list, you use the length function to be able to give you that. So execute this. The size of the list is 10. If we use that for February numbers, the size of the February numbers is 4. And so on and so forth. So that's how you go about determining the length. Oopsie, keep forgetting that if I double click, it's going to show me the code. That's how you go about getting the length of a list. To get a minimum and maximum, it's just the same thing. Okay, so minimum and maximum, the maximum of the list, just go ahead and use max. You can also use that to get a minimum of the list. See, a bunch of functions. Again, these are built-in functions with Python, so it's easier for you to do that. Your February number, what do you think the value would be? 7.0 and S or 7 or set. So let's execute that. Not supported between instances of string and int. So I definitely should use list range because you cannot find a maximum value between a number and a string. So if I execute that, maximum of the list is 10, minimum is 1. If we want to make, in some cases, guys that usually create data, on the fly, fake data or just, random data, you can always go ahead and now that you have a list range with a size of 10, if you use, say, double list, you can go ahead and add the list to itself. This range plus this range. That should end up giving us a bigger list. So let's go ahead and print that new list, which would be print double list. Once it's done, now we have a list of 20 items. Sounds good? Questions, concerns, comments? And one last one, which is gonna probably make your life a lot easier. If you're asked to come up with, hey, create a list of 200 values, you probably don't want to go in and typing them each one at a time, right? So a list, again, it does not have to be unique. If you want a list of 200 values, the easiest way to do that, after I've gotten my double list, all I have to do is, let's say more list is the name of the list, should be equal to double list times 10. What it's going to do is going to create this list 10 times the size rather than multiplying it. So if I do that and I print it as well, now we have a really long list. Sounds good? But all of these lists have a lot of duplicates in there. If we want to make it a set, it's very easy. Let's say we want only the unique values. All I have to do is print set of more list. Now you're going to have unique values again, right here, and you see the set has curly braces.
This Python is a monster. Oh my God.
So you can manipulate as much as you want. If somebody tells you there's actually a guy that's going to jail that helped out the cryptocurrency guy to create fake data to pretend that he has people in his company. But it's just easy stuff like this. You just go out there and pull out. There are lots of data sets out there, very free and easy to use. Go and pull all the first names, all the common last names, and make permutations and just randomly select them from a list and create fake addresses, fake stuff, and populated it into, I don't do cryptocurrency. So that's what he used to create fake customers for the guy's company. And then eventually they started going to using machine learning to make some algorithms in there. I think the guy got paid, I can't remember, $19,000 or 20 something thousand dollars to create that. And it probably took him a few minutes or probably a couple hours to go ahead and create that fake data. to populate
Mhm.
their website to make it look like they have so many people.
Mhm.
Yeah, but don't do that. You want to be an ethical hacker. So yeah, we've
Mhm.
looked at those. We've seen all of those, how we can access it. We can use the index as well to access the list
Mhm.
items. We haven't used negative indices, but if I wanted to see the index of, let's say, the list range had 10 records. So if I wanted to see, let me go ahead and get all of this out again. Put it somewhere out here since I don't need it. Let's say print list range. This time I want the last item. -1 is going to give me the last item. The last item should be 10, right? So if I execute that, it prints 10. That's the last
Mhm.
item. I should have my list range in here. If I wanted the second to the last item, I would use -2. I execute that. The second to the last item is 9.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a quick way to get those using negative indexes. So adding values to list, if I want to add a value to the list, there are many ways you can add values to list. So for instance, if I want to find out all the different functions that you can use for a list, there are a lot of them. The list range, I can use that and say dir, one of those built-in functions that you can use as well, and do list range. If I do dir list range and execute that, these are all the different functions that I can use in the list. I can append, I can clear, I can copy, I can count, I can extend, I can find the index, I can insert, I can pop, I can remove, I can reverse and sort. So if I want to reverse that list, all I needed to do was, let me go ahead and comment this out. Let's say print that dot reverse. If I execute that, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. It's a list add blah 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 blah. Ah, I see.
Mhm.
Okay, so when I do that, I need to assign it to a new list. That's the thing with reverse. So let me copy that. Actually, I want to cut it and then say reverse list. Should be assign that to it. So I'm going to print my list range. Also print reverse list. Execute that. It still doesn't do that. What am I missing here? What am I missing here? What I need to do then is, let me go into that and do I have a list in here? No, I don't. So let's create a list real quick. Actually, let me go ahead and exit full screen. And where is the other one? So I can put it side by side. Yeah, that's why. No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this one. Yeah, there you go. Awesome. So I can copy this over since I'm too lazy to create a new one. Let's create a new file in here. List.py. Is that? Okay. So why am I having reverse? Ah, I see. I think I need to use that. Should work just fine. Oh, it's giving me none. So all I needed to do here was, let's make sure I exit out of this.
It did reverse, right?
Yes, it did reverse. I think I was calling the method, but I forgot to put my parentheses around it.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
can. Yeah. So undo this. Reverse is not, yeah, that's something we'll talk about next week. Execute that. And now it reversed it. Sounds good.
Hmm.
Cut this out. When it reverses it, it actually puts it back in the same place. So that's one way you can do it to reverse a list. I don't think, did we have something else in there? Okay, adding values to a list. Yep, I didn't talk about that yet. So let's print our list again. Delete this. Our list is 1 to 10. If we want to add a value, we can go ahead and just say list range and 11. Sorry, is it 11? Nope, it should be 10. At item 10, I want to go ahead and call it, let's give it 100. And then we print that. So now this assignment index is out of range. I cannot go ahead and assign 100 to 10. What I need to do is I have to do that dot add. Okay. Does that make sense? So let's go back again and look at all those functions that you have for lists. Let me go ahead and print them out again. A bunch of different functions that you can use for a list. Again, there's some that have double underscore. Those are, I don't want to get into those right now, but yeah.
I think the append is the one that I used yesterday for my assignment.
Yeah. Oh, you
Okay.
used it
Yeah.
yesterday for your assignment?
Yes, that is how I was able to capture every single entry
Yeah.
that the end user was providing. Then I used that to find the maximum using the just the word you showed here. After I got the list, captured the list, and then I got the maximum out of it.
Exactly. So append definitely adds it to the end,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Or you can clear a list and start from scratch, or copy it, or
Mhm.
count it, or extend it. You can use
Mhm.
add. Add is for a dictionary. Okay. So what we need to do then is list dot append.
Yeah.
And the best way again to do that, if we go to Visual Studio Code, after creating our list, if you type in list, oopsie, list range dot, you see all those different functions. So append tells you that append an object to the end of the list. And then you can go ahead and put the object in there. Okay. So let's see, let me maximize this. It usually gives you an example, but it doesn't give you an example in here. That's weird.
Mhm.
So let's go ahead and append. Nope, I didn't want to do it in here. I actually wanted to do it elsewhere. Yeah, I prefer working with Anaconda, or should I say Python on the
Mhm.
cloud, because you can easily say if we execute that and print it, now we have 100 at the end.
Mhm.
Okay. But if we want to assign, instead of 100, we want to change it to 11, then we're going to say list range item at position number 10. Please go ahead and change it to 11.
Mhm.
We execute it now. We have 11 in there.
Mhm.
Sounds good? Oh, I need to comment this out. So yeah, that's how you go about assigning it. You can go ahead and also remove a particular element. Okay. So how do we do that? Manipulating lists is always something that is good to learn. You know, if
Yeah.
we don't want anything anymore, go ahead and remove it. So if we want to remove, let's go ahead and say list range dot remove. Let's see. Let's say 6. Right, execute that. Now 6 is no longer there. Oops, right here. 6 has been removed. So you can remove an item, or you can actually delete it from a particular position. That's another way you can do it. Okay, so how do you delete it from a position? You use the delete keyword. Okay, so in here, let's go. I thought I did. Yeah, okay, I see why I left that in there. So if I want to delete it, let's say list range. We want the very first item to be deleted. Let's see. Then we need to use the delete keyword. So we're going to delete the very first item. Now we're going to have 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 blah. You print that out. 1 is no longer there. 1 has been deleted.
I think it's interesting to research the difference between delete and remove.
Yeah, delete again. For delete, you have to specify the index.
The index, yeah.
But for remove, you're just removing the particular item.
So if you have to print list range above deletion, above that delete, I don't know how to call it, but above that, are we gonna get? Yeah, we should get the list.
Yeah, the
With
list
that item.
before and after.
Yeah, yeah. Just thinking whether it affects it as well.
And printing is always a good idea to debug. Otherwise, I don't want to show you all the other debuggers that you can, debugging that you can use in Visual Studio Code. But yeah, again, I just printed
Yeah.
stuff without printing them out. But you can see how the list changes.
Mhm.
First of all, append 100, and then you went ahead and changed it to 11 right there. You went ahead and removed item, which is 6. It's no longer there. And then you went ahead and removed the first position.
1. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
So those are all different ways that you can manipulate lists, using delete. Sorry, this should be using remove, and the other one is using delete. All right. Now, if you want to find a value in a list, all you have to use is use the in keyword. So Python is really easy. For other programming languages, you don't use it that way. You have to figure out a particular way of looking at it. So to do that, let's go ahead and say, you just have to do blah, blah, blah in blah, blah, blah. And it's going to return true or false. So after making all those changes, 6 is not in there. So let's first start here. Say 6 in this range. Let's print it out. And then let's do it again afterwards. And execute it. So, yep, before it was true, afterwards it's false. Okay, so it's just simple English. In other programming languages, it will be difficult. Now, if you want to go ahead and check every single time, let's say go ahead and tell the user to guess the numbers in a particular sequence. If they guess a number, you can remove it and check if it's in there and so on. So it's very simple to go through the syntax and so on. So go ahead and research more about this. If you want to also delete, you can also use pop. Pop is used to remove the last item. So if I do the pop right now, let's print this again. I'm going to remove 11 at the end. range, the pop. Pop does not take any argument. So as you can see, some functions take arguments, like remove takes the index. Pop does not take anything because it automatically removes the last one. Now 11 is no longer there. You end with 10. Okay. So yep, again, you can check all of these. You can also sort things out. You can count, but we're using length. Length and count is still the same thing. So like we said, these are just different functions that you use for list. Remember we said the string is also a list, but it's a special type of string, a list. Let's go ahead and say, let's call it my name, right? My name is Vitus. And I want to go ahead and find out the type, my name. Let's probably print that out. And then I want to go ahead and find out what are the different types of functions that I can have in my name. So let's execute that. We say my name is a string. These are all the different types of functions that you can have for a string. You can decide to capitalize it. You can decide to make it lowercase. You can join it. You can strip it, split it, and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about that next week, but just to give you an idea that there are many, many, many functions that makes it very powerful to go ahead and play around with that. You can use find and so on and so forth. You can check if the particular character, say you're checking each of these characters in my name. You can decide to check if it's alphanumeric, if it's alpha, if it's a decimal or a digit, and so lowercase, uppercase, and so on and so forth. So that's when you're comparing two strings, or if you're checking for if a password is strong or not.
Yeah, exactly. That was just coming to my mind. I'm like, okay, this what you're gonna use to check the strength of your password, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, those are some examples with list. Manipulating it, we can decide to break our list apart, right? So for instance, I don't know if I want to use the one with my name in there, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and use students. So let me copy all of this out again so that we don't have too much stuff. Where did the rest of it go? There it is. So in here, I want to go ahead and manipulate that list. Okay, so to manipulate the list, I could go ahead and splice it or join it or sort it or add values to the list, which we have seen, remove values from the list, which we have seen, determine the length and so on and so forth. Those we've already seen those. So let's try to slice it, join it, or sort it. So to slice it, slicing is just getting a section of the list. So for instance, students, there are currently 4 in that list. I can decide to say I want to slice that list from the second to the 4th. That's going to give me, it's probably going to give me an error.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So,
Because we have up to 3.
yes, so let's execute it and enjoy the error. Well, oh, that's right. It starts from 2 and ends at 3. So this actually, for slicing, actually have, let's say, start and end. Since that end is after the start, it doesn't really give you an error message. If I did that and I had 3, execute, it
Same
starts
thing.
at 2 and ends at 3, so it does not include the end.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay.
So 3 and 4, we had the same outcome, right?
No, 3 and 4, it included the end.
Okay, but 0.
So let's copy this.
Because 2 there is gonna be from n.
Yes, so again, 2 starts from an. That's where it starts. It starts at this index. and it ends
Yes.
at that index, but it does not include the end. Does that make sense?
No, when you say it doesn't include the and oh yeah, it's -1. Yeah, okay.
Yes, the upper
Yeah,
limit is
yeah. Cool.
there you go.
Mhm,
Excellent.
mhm. Thank you.
All right. Also, if you want to say, let's start from the beginning and end somewhere, then you can go ahead and say, okay, let's start from there and end at 3. When you don't include the beginning, it also works just fine. Okay,
Mhm.
so execute that. It's going to go all the way to the 3rd position and stop.
Mhm.
Also, we can decide that we want to start just from the 2nd position all the way to the end. And do that. It starts from here all the way to the end. Sounds good. So what happens? What do you think happens if you omit both the beginning and the end?
You get everything. I don't know.
That's right. You're going to end up getting everything.
It's multiple choice. You get everything.
Yeah, you definitely go ahead and get everything. Sounds good. But you can also go ahead and decide, say, between Fabian, Nigel, and Anne, I want to go ahead and add another person in there. If I want to go ahead and do that, let's say students between 2 and 3, I want to add somebody in there. Let's go ahead and say, how do I do this? Oops, sorry. Actually, I did it right. I just needed to put it in the other way. I'll go ahead and add 2 students, right? The 2 students would be Dolph and Blaze. Now I can go ahead and print everything out. So execute that. Dolph and Blaze are inserted in there. Sounds good.
Mhm.
So now we've replaced the middle and added 2 records in there. So that's how slicing works. There's a lot of different ways that we can slice depending on what you're trying to do. When you have different questions that are asked to you, you can always do, again, remember, it's a piece of art, right? Programming is a piece of art. You might do it one way, I might do it another way. At the end of the day, we're all going to come up with the same results. So we just have to see which one is more optimal, per se. So joining lists, we've already looked at how we can join lists. You can use the join keyword. You can use plus to add it. Sorting lists, you can use the sort again. So it's very easy to go ahead and sort. Let's go ahead and sort the name of students here. Print students, sort. We have. Now it's going to, nope, it didn't work. What am I missing? Do I need to print it? I don't need to print it. There you go. No, that's still wrong. All right, so after I sort it, I need to go ahead and print it separately. Because the sort, it does the sorting in place. How can I spell? So yeah, sorting is done in place. So you're going to go ahead and change that all together. Now you have your new file is in there. So now it's no longer going to be that. It's going to sort it in place. So it's usually a good idea if you're going to sort it, maybe go ahead and assign it a new value and say sorted students should now be equal to that. Then you want to print out students and sorted students. So that you still have difference. Your students are still in that order, your sorted students are in another order.
Prof, so there is a, you see that the students list is not like, it's not coming in alphabetical order, but
Yeah.
sort makes it comes in alphabetical
Yeah.
order. So in this case, you didn't, so that's just the function of sort to place it in alphabetical order.
Yes, the function of sort is to place it in alphabetical order. It arranges the elements on the list from low to high, right? Is it ascending?
I
Yes.
think that's the default.
Yes, yes, the
Uh-huh.
default.
Now, if you wanted to sort like this and now reverse, then you would now print and would append reverse to the print stuff after
Exactly.
sorting.
Yes, yes, yes. So you want to
Okay.
reverse it.
Okay.
All right. So again, you have to remember that all these list methods, oops, I don't have them anymore. Let me go ahead and do the dir again. Students this time. Look at these list methods. The problem is that most of these list methods are void. Do you remember what it means for a function to be void? What should I say function? A function is void means it does not return anything, right? So in this case, when we sorted this, it did not return anything. So this is going to be empty. That's why we have none in here. So it's empty. So I think there's another function that we can use, which is sorted, but that's something that's totally different. So you want to take a look at all your different functions in the list and check them out. So that is it for lists. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time. I was hoping that we'll run through it. But let's jump into dictionaries then and see. So dictionaries, let's use this part at the bottom. To create a dictionary, how do we do it? Do you guys remember? I know we created one earlier.
Key value pair and the curly brackets.
Yep, key value pair. So let's say dictionary for languages, right? And we're going to make it empty. Yeah, let's not make it empty. Let's just put stuff in there. So let's say for one should be equal to, I don't really know French, so let's just keep it to English. One, and then two will be equal to two. Here you go. So this dictionary has two values. What am I using? Equal to? No. Oh, there you go. So I've created that dictionary of languages. If I want to print it, all I have to do is print. And it's going to output. Oh, close it. Jeez. Yeah, this is what happens when you switch. And I can't spell. Good. Print 1 and 2. And it looks good. If I wanted to print just what is in 2, all I have to do is do that same one, but pick out the particular key that I want to print from. In this case, 2, and it's going to print just 2. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But what if I change this? Instead of entering the key, which is 2, I enter the value? What do I get?
Guessing error.
That's right. It gives me an error because it
That
does
was,
not have
a
that
guess.
key. It does
That was a
not know the
guess.
key.
I was guessing.
Very good. Very good guess. So we can go ahead and also find the length of our dictionary. How do we know the size of that dictionary? To get the length of the dictionary, we just use a length function. Now it should tell us the length of dictionary is 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. So what do we do if we want to check if the there's a particular key in the dictionary. To check again, we'll use the very in. Say, for instance, let's say 3 in dictionary of languages. And let's also try 2 in dictionary of languages. Should be able to tell. Oh, I keep forgetting I need to print it. I don't do print, it's going to print just the last one. Yep. False and true, because there's no 3 in our dictionary, but there's 2 in our dictionary. Sounds good?
Mhm.
And we can go ahead and also print, let me see what else is in there. Accessing that, modifying dictionary values. Let's go ahead and change the values, for instance. We want to change the value of 1. You can go ahead and do dictionary language. 1 should now be we also do dictionary languages for 2. It's going to be good. And then go ahead and print that dictionary again. We have good. Now assigning these values is the same as just adding a new one. If I went ahead and did the same thing, and it's still going to work just fine. Even though I did not have that, I can use this to add key value, or I can also use add. So if I wanted to use add, let me go ahead and print out maybe the different functions for dictionary. Also a lot of them. Execute that. From keys, get items, and so on and so forth. So you can add the keys, you can check out values, and where is the add? It doesn't have add. That's interesting. So you can go ahead and also look through the dictionaries. We don't necessarily have to print it this way all the time. So to look through it, very similar to how we use our for loop, you can go ahead and say for key in dictionary. Yep, there you go. For that key, what do we do? Any idea?
You want to get the value?
Yes.
You print. Okay. You print key.
Yep, I can print the key and also print the value. How do I print the value?
Square bracket, then maybe what? Let me see.
So to print the value, I'll have to do dictionary and get that value by entering the key in it. Right?
Yep. Stop.
So it depends. In here, I'm assuming my key is, well, it doesn't matter if it's a string or not. So let's execute that. You have 1, 2, 3.
So yeah, that's your value then, giving you there.
Now, if I want to print just the keys, the easiest way of doing it is just do, get out of there, for item in dictionary keys. Now I'm picking up only the keys. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yeah, I think I saw that function there too, as dot keys or something. Dot value.
Yeah, so there's dot keys and then there's also dot values.
And dot item as well. That gives you that pair.
Exactly, dot items. So what happens? What do we do here? Any idea? Is that okay? Since
No,
it's
we still need
keys,
to complete the statement, right?
the compound statement. So
Yeah.
use that
Yeah.
and you should be able to now print. Actually, instead of item, let me just call it key and be
Okay.
consistent. So now I can print the key and and also print the value. But let's just go ahead and print the key. I wanted the value. I'll go ahead and do the same thing and do just the value. And call this value. Now I have my keys and my values separate. So you can decide to go and iterate just over the keys or iterate over the values and so on and so forth. And in that same way, you can check if a key exists. You can also retrieve all the values and so on and so forth. You can count them, you can add them. Each time you're iterating to go ahead and say this plus the next one or the previous one and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Everybody good so far? It's a lot, it's a lot, it's a lot, and we've already gone over time today. Unfortunately, it's just getting practice, practice, practice. Now, if you see something like that out there, it shouldn't be too scary for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
again, if you look, for instance, let's say we're looking at movies. Let's check out this movie schedule. In here, you have your current movies. This movie is showing at this time. That movie is showing at that time. And if we want to see the showing of a particular movie, we go ahead and print them out. Otherwise, we go ahead and ask what movie would you like to, or what movie would you like the show for, or the show time for. When you go ahead and you enter that value, that's a movie. We're going to get the current movies in here and get the particular time. So in this case, we're using the get function. If there's no movie in there, movie is not playing. Otherwise, the movie is playing at the show time, which is what is pulled from that movie. So this gives you a good idea. Again, remember, curly braces is for, let me go back to, where is it? Curly braces is for dictionaries. And let's make this bigger.
Square bracket is for list.
Exactly. Square brackets is for list. Parentheses is for tuples. Curly braces is also for sets. Sets, you don't really use them that much. You mostly want to use them if you just want to get unique values from a list and so on. But you can always transfer each one from another. Sounds good?
So in the dictionary, if you could go back to the movie example, please.
Okay.
So the key is the movie name.
Exactly. So the movie name has to be unique.
Yeah, and you have your value as the time. So we can actually maybe bracket or whatever. I don't know what is bracket or the square bracket, and then we can have the time of the movie, the author of the movie, maybe a classification of that movie,
Exactly. Yep, you can have, now you're thinking in the light of what I was showing you earlier when we had, let's see, nope, I can't find it. When I was talking about, there you go, the question here, right?
Mhm.
So we can have a list that has just our languages,
Mhm.
and then we can have a dictionary that has all the attributes of our language.
Exactly, because you can have an employee that um, has multiple language skills
Exactly.
as part of that value.
There you go. And then you can have the nested list in there
Yeah.
and so on. And
Mhm.
then what you need then is maybe an array or a tuple that has the number of questions, because that's never going to change. So you just said question one is this, question two
Yeah.
is that. And then based on the answer, if the answer is true or false, you have a conditional if else if statement that tells you
Mhm.
where to go for more direction.
Mhm.
Sounds good? So
Yeah.
imagine if you had to do this without data structures. You have to have so many different variables and it'll be very challenging to keep track of them.
Yeah.
Sounds good?
Mhm.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to try the pie plot. So this is quite a lot for you guys to digest. So practice it, practice it. I'm going to, by the end of the day, I'm going to give you a short quiz. It's probably not going to be on dictionaries because the dictionaries might be too much for you to assimilate, but I'll give you a few questions, exercises to do for lists. You
Mhm.
know, probably just run through a text and check that text and be able to pull information from it. But we haven't been able to work with file types yet or file inputs. So our next class, let's see. Our next class is strings. I don't know if I want to skip. Let's see. Our next class is strings and files. Okay, great, great.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll be able to do strings and files and then jump into object-oriented programming. But what we have been doing today and earlier has some object-oriented programming in it. So that's the functions part. Functions are part of object-oriented programming. We'll talk more about it when we actually get to that next week. Sounds good? All right.
Yeah.
So questions, comments, concerns before I let you go. We've gone over our time very well today. But this is a very difficult topic to get it completed in one day. I'm glad that we're able to do it, but I know that you have a lot of questions. So use the
Mhm.
forum on Google Classroom. Ask away your questions. I'll try to make another short video to try to go over a few examples so that we can really solidify everything that we did, because we were unable to get to our example with the math lab, but I might be able to record that and send it to you. Obviously, we started talking about complex data types, which are put into structures. We talked about sequences, arrays, tuples, lists, and strings. We also talked about collections, sets, and dictionaries, and we had some practice. So throughout, we made quite a few mistakes and we're able to debug that. Debugging is very important. So without much ado, any questions you have, reach out to me. I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you very much. That's it for today. Yes, question. You're on mute. I, I thought, Blazer, you just raised your hand.
Well, let
Okay.
me ask on
Oh,
behalf.
no.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fabian. Ask on his
Yes,
behalf.
I saw that when you are on Visual Studio
Yeah.
or on Anaconda, you get to the beginning of the line. What command do you use to copy that entire line?
Okay, let's get back to it and see. So in Visual Studio right here.
Yes. If you
So
wanted
I
to copy the whole of line 3, paste in
okay.
line 4. Is it
So line
command B?
3 in whenever you're trying to navigate in a cell or in a text document, when you click once, your cursor gets placed where you click. If you click twice, double click, you select the word.
Yeah.
If you triple click, you select the sentence.
Okay.
And then you can use Control C to copy and Control V to paste.
But there is a way to duplicate, right? The
Yes,
line.
there's a way to duplicate. I usually use Visual Studio a lot, but that reminds me actually, there is a cheat sheet that I was supposed to share with you guys. Let me go ahead, VS Code, shortcuts. There you go. Yeah, that was a really nice one. There it is. So here are some shortcuts that can definitely help you. I know in Visual Studio, I usually do, what is it? I think it's Control D to duplicate the line, but I haven't tried it here. So in here, let me go ahead and search for duplicate. Spell. Oh, it doesn't have duplicate. That's interesting. Okay, copy line down. Okay, Shift Alt down. That's what we need to use. So let me go ahead, Shift Alt down. Nope, it doesn't work for me because, oh, never mind.
Are you on Mac?
Yep, it works. I'm on the Mac. That's right. So yeah, Shift Alt down. I'll go ahead and share this with you guys.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yep, so I'll share it in our class forum, definitely. Yep, all these shortcuts are very useful. But the problem is when you start switching between IDEs, it
No.
becomes challenging. So I only use Visual Studio Code if I'm doing Python. Otherwise, I'm using Visual Studio, and for SQL, I'm using SSMS or what you call it, Adobe Studio. Sorry, Azure Studio, Azure Data Studio. All right, so very good question. Any more questions before we call it a day? All right, no more questions. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you guys next weekend.